Thank you, Shivam, for doing this. This was long overdue.
Thank you, Anshuman, for having me over on your fabulous podcast.
So you are a contributing editor to the print, right?
Yes.
Right now. But I've been reading your articles a lot, and you write on campaigning. You've consistently written on campaignings, political campaigns, and you've just come back
Since
from Bihar.
2014, yes, my obsession has been campaigning. Before 2014, it wasn't so much about campaigning. I used to be obsessed with things like caste and so on.
Right.
But Modi's stupendous victory in 2014 made me look at campaigning itself as being perhaps the most important part of elections.
Okay. Yeah. I think 2014 election was when a lot of people started taking political campaigns seriously.
Yeah.
And it also was the first time they got a structure. Right. Before 2014, we never heard of a structured political campaign.
अभी भी क्या स्ट्रक्चर्ड होता है
हाँ, मतलब
लेकिन
एटलीस्ट एक दो पार्टीज हैं जो करती हैं थोड़ा
हाँ
बहुत.
एक ही है
Probably BJP है, probably AAP sometimes. So you've just come back from Bihar elections, right?
Yeah, I was in Bihar. Yeah.
So what was the campaign like on the ground? Did you see any campaign from the I'm guessing BJP obviously had a campaign, but did you see a campaign from the opposition?
So the visual sense of the campaign was Modi banners, Modi hoardings, and Tiraspi hoardings.
Okay.
And Modi hoardings, as you can imagine, far outnumber the Tiraspi hoardings.
Right.
But Tiraspi hoardings made up in being very striking, very good, very clear, concise. The slogans are better than the Modi hoardings.
Okay.
The Modi hoarding was saying, "Bharosa rakhiye Modi pe, Modi ne ye kiya, Modi ye karega." And the Tejasvi hoardings was screaming fresh, तेज रफ्तार, बिहार के बारे में बात करनी होगी. So that was a visual sense of the campaigning. Otherwise ground पे तो आजकल कोई campaign खास होता नहीं है. MLAs की candidates की आप वो देखते हैं, टेम्पो घूमती रहती है. But because election commission restrictions,
right,
you don't see much of a campaign visually on the ground. But when you talk to people, you realize how much the BJP's door-to-door campaign, the WhatsApp campaign, the hidden campaign, as it were, is far bigger these days than the visual campaign. But the idea of Indian elections being a festive occasion on the ground has long been dead.
Yeah. So voters are, I'm guessing voters are also mature now to identify that this is a campaign going on and not really get swayed too much by it, unless there is a large sentiment, right? In this campaign, we saw there was a sudden momentum that Tejasvi gained, because I think a month before the elections, everyone had taken for granted that Nitish was going to come back, the NDA was going to come back.
Yeah. I think this was a fascinating election, which tells you a lot about not voter behavior, but politician behavior.
Oh.
It tells you a lot about how quickly things can change, how घी होता है कभी कभी, घी में आग लगाने वाला कोई नहीं होता है. So I went briefly to Bihar in February. I went again in October first week.
Yeah.
And the sense of anti-incumbency, even anger against Nitish Kumar was very clearly there.
In October?
Even in October first week.
Okay.
Right? And there was no visual election. There was no election in October first week. Right?
Yeah.
And then suddenly comes Chirag Paswan and says, my only purpose this election is to defeat Nitish Kumar. Right? And the sense of the election completely changes. Because until Chirag Paswan's rebellion, people were like, Nitish is terrible, but we don't have an option. But Chirag Paswan's rebellion opened up the options. The people started seeing कि कुछ हो सकता है चुनाव के बाद.
Right.
I started meeting voters who said कि बस नीतीश ही कम से कम सीट आए ताकि इनको मुख्यमंत्री बनने से रोका जाए. बीजेपी आ जाए, जीत जाए, कोई बात नहीं. Right?
Why? This is a very strong sentiment to come from people कि इनको बस CM ना बनने दिया जाए.
The anger against Nitish Kumar is, the last time I saw such anger against the incumbent in any election in India was 2014, the anger against UPA 2.
Really? It was that strong?
It was extremely strong. I think the people of Bihar right now would be very angry to see Nitish Kumar back as chief minister. He's hated. People are just done with him. It's like please go. Okay, but there's one more election where there was similar anti-incumbency anger, not sentiment but anger.
Yeah.
And that was Vasundhara Raje Scindia in Rajasthan, right? Just hataओ, like just go.
कि कोई भी और
अब हो गए 15 साल, जाओ please, just get lost. That kind of anger. But Chirag Paswan really opened it up, and then when Terasvi started his campaign very late, there was no Terasvi campaign until mid-October, until just 2 weeks before the election actually started. But when Terasvi started his campaign, he saw, to the surprise of the RJD, I think, they saw a public response and reaction which was beyond what they had expected. If they knew this was going to be the public response, I think they would have started the campaign much earlier. So Terasvi and Chirag then started looking like they can do something about Nitish Hatao, despite the BJP's support to Nitish. And that's what made the election very interesting. It was like a cricket match you want to watch till the end.
This is interesting that even RJD was surprised by the reaction that they got from the public. And if we look at the state elections in the past 2-3 years, especially after UP and Gujarat, I've always sort of assessed that BJP has not been able to form a clear majority government anywhere in a major state after that. It has either been in a coalition or after overthrowing a sitting government. So if you are a leader of a political party, you would try to think that people are there for the taking. ऐसा नहीं है कि people are completely कि बीजेपी से ने hypnotize करके रखा हुआ है किसी को. If you do your job well, people are there for the taking.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think after UP 2017, the BJP found itself in a position where it was no longer able to win state elections in Modi's name. Till UP 2017, that was happening. Now, why has this change taken place itself is a question worth going into. कि यूपी 2017 तक मोदी के नाम पे स्टेट इलेक्शन आप जीत रहे थे, उसके बाद मोदी के नाम पे स्टेट इलेक्शन जीतना मुश्किल हो गया है. ऐसा क्यों है? एंड आई थिंक दैट इज बिकॉज मोदी हिमसेल्फ आफ्टर द फेलियर ऑफ डिमोनेटाइजेशन स्टार्टेड डिसोसिएटिंग हिमसेल्फ फ्रॉम स्टेट पॉलिटिक्स. बीजेपी इतनी स्टेट जीतने लग गई कि फिर ये डर हुआ उनको डबल एंटी इनकम्बेंसी का कि इफ पीपल आर अनहैप्पी विद anything, then they cannot blame any opposition. State government BJP, central government BJP. तो blame किसको करेंगे? सारा blame BJP पे आएगा. So they were nervous about this double anti-incumbency. I mean, I know for a fact that they were. It's not just my speculation. So what they started doing was they started dissociating themselves from state elections, Modi, in a nuanced manner in his campaigns. But I mean, the Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan elections, he did far less campaigning than, for example, what he did in, say, UP, right? But so what happens now is, there are any issues, any problems, you blame the state government. It could be a BJP state government, right? And everything that goes right, you blame Modi. You give credit to Modi. So before 2014, I used to marvel at the Indian voter. That the Indian voter, the most unlettered villager, knew inflation के लिए central government को blame करना है और law and order के लिए state government. These days, I find people blaming the state government for inflation. In Bihar, I found people speaking against Nitish Kumar and saying, आपने इतना महंगा आलू खाया अपनी जिंदगी में 40 रुपए किलो. And I'm like, inflation to central government issue hota tha. It's about Modi, right? Like, blame Modi for it. Why blame Nitish? But that is what the Modi propaganda machine has beautifully achieved. All credit to Modi. All blame to state government. Even the BJP NDA state government.
So that ends up hurting BJP's chief ministers also. Like we saw in Rajasthan and MP and even in Chhattisgarh.
In Lok Sabha elections in 2019, in Gorakhpur, I asked a BJP worker, okay, you're talking about Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, which are like well-known examples. I'm telling you UP.
Okay.
I asked a BJP worker कि आप डोर टू डोर क्या मैसेज दे रहे हैं, एंड ही रिप्लाइड, हम मैसेज ये दे रहे हैं कि ये जो कास्ट वास्ट वाली एलिगेशन ऑफ ठाकुरवाद, ये सब जो प्रॉब्लम्स है ना, ये मोदी भी क्यों निकाल रहे हो? ये मोदी योगी का चुनाव थोड़ी ना है, तो योगी चुनाव में सोचना. So like Modi ko jitane ke liye, they are happy to throw Yogi under the bus.
Wow.
And this is not surprising. We've seen this movie before. I mean, not we, you and I were not born. But the Indira Gandhi system was totally like this.
And what we saw post Indira Gandhi was that Congress sort of disintegrated state after state. They lost to other people. That process had started, but then they could never recover from it.
Yes, but the same may not happen to the BJP because unlike the Congress, the BJP is a cadre-based party. The Congress never had an RSS and so on. So the same kind of disintegration may not happen in a post-Modi BJP. But who knows?
Plus, I think in BJP there's always some mobility. Like whoever does well has a chance of becoming the face of the PM. In Congress,
which is because of because of the RSS. It is when Advani was failing, it was the RSS that managed to nudge him out and install Rajnath Singh.
Right.
When the RSS decided to back Modi, the game was over for the Delhi BJP old guard, right?
Yeah.
So the RSS is a big factor in all this. Yeah.
So, but I didn't understand, where did the anger towards Nitish Kumar come from? Like,
oh well, where do we start? I think Nitish Kumar in his first term solved the electricity problem. In the second term, the roads problem. But in the third term, he did not have much to show. And in the first two terms, he was really shining because of the contrast with Lalu Yadav's Jungle Raj years. But now you have a young generation that did not see Jungle Raj. So they do not have the ability to appreciate Nitish by contrast.
Right.
Furthermore, Nitish Kumar in his third term became very arrogant, smug, very confident. If you keep winning election after election, you defeat Modi in 2015 by allying with Lalu, then you come back with BJP, you dump Lalu. Right, and then you in the Lok Sabha election you win something like 16 out of 17 seats you contest. You're bound to become arrogant. So Nitish Kumar became very arrogant. Also, he was aging. Also, the standard anti-incumbency, 3-term anti-incumbency that sets in. The same people get the contracts. The same people make money. The same people get the fruits of power, access to power. And so the others become impatient, right? And the young generation in Bihar was asking for a lot more than good law and order, roads and electricity. They were asking for education and health. There have been these devastating floods in Patna of the sort that we now see in many cities because of climate change. And people said, look, you neglected urban Bihar all these years. So where is the drainage system? Right. There was prohibition which completely failed, which bound to fail. And the point is not whether people want to drink or not want to drink, but the point is that when you impose prohibition and it fails, it shows you do not have a grip over your administration, your police. They're all making money, right? And therefore all around corruption also increased. So huge complaints about local petty corruption. Then comes the final straw, which is COVID. Migrant labor. The only chief minister who tells Bihari migrant labor you're not allowed to come back to your own homes.
Like, he did that.
He said, "Wapis mat aiye," And there were these videos circulating of Bihari migrant labor from as far as Chennai, abusing Nitish Kumar in language that I never thought was possible for any Bihari to use for Nitish Kumar because for his first 10 years, he was a rather loved chief minister, right? Even people who did not vote for him or like him were unable to speak against him because he was doing a good job. But he handled COVID badly, and with floods and COVID, he was himself so afraid of COVID, he was not physically touching files for weeks because he was afraid of getting COVID.
So nothing was happening.
So and he would be closed inside his own house. And there's only one word to describe how Nitish Kumar came across to voters as, and that is arrogant. And after winning the election, which he should not have won, I mean, he has not won. JDU itself has done very badly. His complaint to the press was, please stop calling me arrogant.
I heard that.
So, not only was he a failure, he was failure ke saath arrogant.
That's what people don't appreciate at all. Okay, you're bad at your job and then you're being arrogant. But I was surprised the momentum that Tejasvi had gained. It was very quick in just for like couple of weeks.
मैंने बोला ना घी फैला हुआ था,
हाँ.
आग लगाने की देरी थी.
And he came from nowhere एकदम से.
But precisely for that reason, let's say if he had started his campaign 6 months earlier,
Yeah.
2/3 majority आती.
Absolutely.
Because इतना such anger against the incumbent, and the opposition is unable to defeat the incumbent.
They're also unable
Wow.
to voice anything. That is what I don't get about opposition. When the whole migrant crisis was happening, there was no articulation of what the problem people are facing. Right? कोई opposition leader ये आके नहीं बोल रहा था कि these are the issues that they're going to face and this is what we can do to solve it.
But if you ask opposition leaders this question, they will say हम तो बोल रहे थे, हम तो रोज प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस कर रहे थे, हम तो रोज ट्वीट कर रहे थे, मीडिया दिखाई नहीं रहा था. That's what they'll say.
But it's not possible. It's also when you firstly I feel that role of the opposition is also to propose, not to just oppose. That an alternative. Right?
प्रपोज भी कर रहे थे. कांग्रेस पार्टी ने कहा कि हम पैसे देंगे टिकट के घर जाने के.
But वो तो
प्रपोज भी किया.
वो तो inconsistent होता है ना. Like they do this
नहीं,
bus wala thing.
No, they were proposing. They were saying let migrant labor go home. They were saying they were doing both constructive and non-constructive criticism of the government of the migrant labor issue. What they were not doing, I'll tell you different. I'll tell you.
Right.
I'll tell you what you were looking for that you did not find. You did not find real empathy. You did not find Tejasvi Yadav or Rahul Gandhi getting out of their homes in comfortable Delhi and walking with migrant labor, walking
exactly
home, right?
Yeah.
You did not find a consistent campaign around.
Exactly.
You did not. Congress party said हम टिकट के पैसे देंगे, ट्रेन के टिकट के, and that was like a one-day event.
Yeah.
Right? They did not tell us in the end कि कितनों के टिकट के पैसे दिए, कितना पैसा खर्चा किया. They did not make a if the BJP was doing this campaign, they would have put up a desk outside every railway station with the BJP symbol, and they would have been distributing money or tickets.
Yeah,
right
they would have been
right?
BJP leaders in every bus going with them.
So the word you began with, structured,
right?
That was missing. The structured campaign. This is why all political parties, all opposition parties, and like the BJP, were distributing food to poor people, to stranded migrant labor, to people in the slums, right? But what is missing is the structured campaign which would communicate and tell people, oh, this is what the opposition is doing. दिमाग में बैठना चाहिए. And Tejasvi Yadav, by the way, was in Delhi during the lockdown. And Bihari migrant labor walking home. He was in Delhi. He said, lockdown में जा नहीं सकता. Migrant labor उठ के जा रहे हैं, मैं नहीं आ सकता. Right?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, young fit man.
Exactly.
He should have gotten up and said, I'll walk with you guys. And
exactly.
if he had just done that,
he would have won the election before it was announced.
अभी CM होता हो.
Exactly. But why do you think opposition is, I won't say so bad at it, but why do you think they don't do it enough, like structured campaigns or a structured messaging?
Well,
and it's a common problem across all opposition parties.
I could give you many answers to that question. And the problem is so old, it's at least 6 years old now, right? That ऐसा नहीं कि they don't know that they're not doing structured campaign, or that they should be doing structured campaign, or they can't see what structured campaigning is. Bachcha can see how the BJP plans its campaign and executes them. So the answer is no longer they don't know. In 2014 I could have said they don't know. But I think there are multiple problems with the opposition. They all boil down to one thing which you will never see expressed in public discourse, which is that the opposition is completely and totally demoralized. They've been, an election like Bihar, where there's such anger in Nitish Kumar, the man told migrant labor not to return to their own homes, and he still comes back as chief minister. It's extremely demoralizing for the opposition. And मतलब बिल्कुल डिप्रेशन में है ऑपोजिशन, क्लिनिकल डिप्रेशन. दे नीड थेरेपी. मतलब हिम्मत नहीं है कि उनको लगता है कि हम क्या होगा. So I asked someone in the Congress, why do you think Tejasvi Yadav did not begin his campaign much earlier? And he said because he did not think he could win. वो हिम्मत
Wow.
ना हिम्मत
So
है, ना
defeatist
होप है. Defeatist, yeah, defeatist because
but
of
itna,
the dominant Modi BJP system.
yeah.
You do not think you can win. कोई सोचता ही नहीं कि हम जीत सकते हैं. बिहार से 1 महीना पहले सब लोग क्या कह रहे थे?
हाँ,
आराम से
NDA
एनडीए जीतेगा.
yeah.
सो व्हेन द कंसेंसस इज कि एनडीए आराम से जीतेगा, व्हेन द सर्वेज आर सेइंग एनडीए आराम जीतेगा और मीडिया इज सेइंग एनडीए आराम जीतेगा, तो आपको लगता ही नहीं कि आपके होप है ना. तेजस्वी यादव डिड एन अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट यात्रा एंड डिड मेहनत इन द 29 बिफोर द 2019 लोकसभा इलेक्शंस, राइट, एंड हिज पार्टी won 0 seat
Yeah.
out of 40 in Bihar. That's and after with that he was so depressed. He spent 1 month locked in Delhi, I believe, in a hotel room. And I heard from people in Patna that he was not accessible even to his own party leaders.
Okay.
Right? I mean,
Wow.
this is a 30-year-old guy who faces the first election campaign
Yeah.
Tejas was doing with Lalu was not with Vidhan Sabha 2020. It was Lok Sabha 2019.
Yeah.
And when you face such a setback, you're bound to feel depressed. Frankly,
Yeah.
I would do the same
Yeah.
if I was in his position. Right? It takes a lot more guts, stamina, substance, maturity to brave it and to still be there
Yeah,
next day in Patna and say these many people voted for me and
Yeah.
I owe it to them to keep working for the people.
Yeah.
And not be depressed and just sit at home. So opposition main problem is just demoralized.
We do see opposition winning in pockets though, like Jharkhand, Andhra, all those areas. So it's not that there is no evidence of victory.
Madhya
Chhattisgarh,
Pradesh,
MP, Rajasthan, right?
Aam Aadmi Party in Delhi.
Exactly. So
Karnataka,
Congress
brief file.
in
Gujarat
Punjab.
Congress came close.
Exactly.
We see them winning. Yeah.
So it's not that there is no evidence that
Yeah.
people not willing to vote for you, or that when you work hard the returns are not there. ऐसा नहीं है. So,
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. And why they're still demoralized.
Yeah.
So I think I think each of those elections where the opposition has won are a case study in themselves. And yes, if the opposition was to learn lessons from these campaigns, it would actually learn a lot and do much better. And my favorite example in all of these campaigns is Jharkhand. Right? Hemant Soren,
Yeah.
this young leader, and I think the fact that the young leader has a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
He really got it. He had no political consultant,
Right.
no big PR machinery.
Exactly.
Right? He did have a bunch of young people working with him.
Yeah.
But he ran a structured campaign, starting a Badlav Yatra in August for an election that was to be held in December.
Right.
Which is how Tejas should have been doing
Yeah.
things. Right? Andhra, Jagan Mohan Reddy did not have a clue, but he had the humility to understand he does not have a clue.
Right.
He was so demoralized after 2014.
Right.
Chandrababu Naidu stole half his MLAs and MPs. And Jagan Mohan Reddy thought, मुझसे ना हो पाएगा. And he goes to a political consultant, Prashant Kishore, and says, you have to help me. And Prashant Kishore says, I have one condition. You have to be doing non-stop yatra for 2 years, even in 45-degree heat. And he said, I'll do it. And he did it. But that is what it takes. Consistent campaign. चाहे वो हेमंत सोरेन का 6 महीने हो, चाहे वो जगन मोहन रेड्डी का 2 साल हो. It takes consistent, persistent campaign. You have to be with the people. You have to communicate to the people. That after, and what's also common in many of these campaigns is that the opposition, what you were saying earlier, was proposing. Opposition was saying, "हम आएंगे तो हम ये करेंगे." Congress said, Chhattisgarh में, Madhya Pradesh में हम farm loan waiver देंगे. Right? Hemant Soren had a 7-point plan which he made into a chakra, and that chakra leaflet was distributed across Jharkhand, right? Jagan Mohan Reddy had a 9-point promise, no Navratalu, right? I mean, Tejas also said 10 lakh jobs, etc. But a bit too late.
Yeah, I think then it just boils down to the lack of making an effort. I mean, it could be a personality issue. I don't know. Like, if you see a lot of people making that effort and winning, or at least coming close to win. Sometimes if I speak for example, of Congress, right? If the Congress leadership sees that other people are making an effort in winning, even some leaders in my party at the state level are making an effort in winning, what stops them from making that effort? It just comes down to willingness.
Well, if you talk to people in the Congress party, then they are always fighting amongst each other. They are fighting for who will be PCC chief, who will get the ticket, who will get to distribute the tickets and maybe sell some of them, make money.
Yeah.
Who they're not fighting for votes. They're fighting for the party, right? And the rare Congress leaders who do fight for the vote, who think about the voter and not the party. They're trying to impress not Sonia Gandhi or Rahul Gandhi or Ahmed Patel or the party in charge of the state. They're trying to impress the voter. Those Congress politicians do rather well.
Right.
Amarinder Singh, Ashok Gehlot, now Bhupesh Baghel. These are people who think of the voter and not of the party, right? And this is a distinction I learned from Sheila Dikshit's autobiography, right? Which is a beautiful book. I recommend to anyone who wants to understand Indian politics. She comes out of nowhere, wins the Delhi election. She was not supposed to win. Pyaz ke daam badh gaye, wo jeet gayi. And then how does she win election after election? 15 years she rules. Her party hated her. BJP is too strong in Delhi. But in every chapter of a book virtually, she tells you that my party people, they wanted control of the party. I wanted control of the votes, right? You think of the voter. And that is, that's also, why a lot of the opposition is unable to do consistent, persistent campaigning. Is because consistent campaigning means you're thinking about what is afflicting the citizen every day, right? It boils down essentially to why are you in politics? Are you in politics for power?
Right.
Or are you in politics to serve the people? If you're in politics to serve the people, then you will not care whether you are chief minister or opposition leader, right? If you're even when you're opposition leader, you have to think about the people, their sufferings, their problems, and address them on a daily basis. But a lot of opposition comes across as, अच्छा भाई चुनाव हम हार गए हैं, चलो अब 5 साल मजे करेंगे और चुनाव से पहले इलेक्शन में फिर से हाथ हिला के भैया वोट दे दो हमको. So that doesn't that basically, if I'm a voter, what that tells me is that you don't really care about me. You care about your power.
Exactly.
Your
position.
I
think that shows in a lot of, so I read a lot of the way people post pictures also. Like, for example, if you read different politicians' Instagram, you can get the feel of what you're saying. Like, for example, there is this famous picture where Modi is visiting his mother, and the messaging is so strong. I don't know if it is like it was intentional or it just happened to be. The house in which Modi's mother lives is a very normal house. The paintings, the furniture, everything is so relatable to let's say the average Indian voter. But when people in the opposition click and post pictures, they post of lawns and expensive furniture. So even at that level, that effort is not there. That messaging is not there. That we want to relate to you.
You can keep making fun of Modi endlessly. That of course Modi can afford to, even on his prime minister's salary, he can give his mother a better home. But yes, it's about messaging. It's about telling the voter that I come from humble roots, a reminder of Modi's humble roots.
Exactly.
Right? And therefore I'm one of you. Whereas, when migrant labor walking home, Rahul Gandhi posted a picture of himself on Instagram. He can blame his advisors for it, but I'll blame him, right? Because I hope he approves what goes out in his name, right? And posted a picture on Instagram of himself looking out of the window into the lawns of his Lutyens' bungalow, and the caption says, "A quiet evening in the office."
Oh yeah, I remember that picture.
Migrant labor walking home, we don't have money to eat food, right? People like you and me were going out and trying to help in the situation, and Rahul Gandhi was spending a quiet evening in the office. The right phrase for this is tone deaf.
Exactly. And this, like, when people see all these pictures, a lot of anger comes in. So given the state of the economy, how much unemployment we have, and the state of income inequality in the country in general, when people see these, like, having a lawn in your house is unattainable for 99% of the people who live here. in this country, especially in a city. And when you show that to your population, and it's a very minuscule thing alone,
You know,
but it's a
Tejasvi
strong messaging.
Yadav, since you were talking about Bihar, he, I forget when, but he was going to Ranchi to meet his father in jail. It also happened to be his birthday. A businessman friend of his gives Tejasvi a birthday gift, which is a chartered plane ride from Patna to Ranchi. On the chartered plane, they're cutting cake.
Oh,
Right?
yeah.
The friend posts these pictures on his own Facebook,
Yeah.
and the pictures go viral.
Right.
Right? What is the message? If I am a poor voter in Bihar unhappy with Nitish Kumar, and you'll never see pictures of Nitish Kumar enjoying any kind of luxury.
Yeah.
Right? If I am seeing these pictures, what is the impression I'm going to take away about Tejasvi?
Exactly.
Is this the leader who really cares and understands? Forget cares, does he even understand what my
Exactly.
life is like, right?
Exactly.
And people like Lalu and Mulayam succeeded because they came from humble roots. They could send one of us.
He used to click pictures with buffaloes.
Exactly.
That's the
Whether
difference.
you're clicking pictures of buffaloes or whether you're clicking pictures on a chartered plane, that's the difference.
That is the difference, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes it's just not detachment, how detached you are. Sometimes it's, are you even intelligent enough to understand that what pictures you should be posting? That is a slightly educated voter might think like that. Why are you doing this? Like, which voter are you trying to impress by your pictures?
Yeah, and as a political analyst, I would say what it shows is that you do not understand your audience.
Yeah.
You do not understand your. I mean, there's a reason why Mahatma Gandhi
Yeah.
shed his fancy clothes and wore a loincloth.
Yeah.
And he wrote about how he decided to wear a loincloth and how decided this is what his dress is going to be one day, and he did it. And then he was so consistent with it that even when he went to England, he sardi mein bhi
it's a famous picture.
I'll wear loincloth, right?
Exactly.
Because he knew this is his way
Yeah.
of telling his audience, telling his people that I am one of you.
Yeah.
Right? He famously said, think of the poorest person and how your actions are impacting their lives. And I mean, the poor voter who's sort of facing chronic TB because they can't get proper nutrition.
Exactly.
When they look at these pictures, they may not dislike you, but when they see pictures of you enjoying luxury, a luxurious life,
it feels insultful.
When they read about you taking non-stop international holidays, as Rahul Gandhi does, do they really think you have empathy for them? Are you dedicating your life to improving the lives of those poor people? No, you're not. You're just coming and waving your hand in a rally and saying vote for me because this is my surname.
Exactly.
That's not how it works. Yeah.
But what's funny is that every political party assumingly might have a team that does all the ground research, reads the sentiment, and you don't need a big team for that. You can just have 2 people, let them travel and just call them and say, what are the people thinking? And they will tell you that, hey, you know what, this is a perception from the ground. These are the issues that matter most to the people, and this is what they expect from the opposition. But surprisingly, that messaging or that feedback system doesn't seem to be there, especially for the Congress, that this is what people want to listen from you.
So, I've thought about this. Why, if it's visible to me by just roaming around one small town for a day, why can the leader in the state capital not see this? And the answer is that the people around the leader are all yes men. Is politicians, and the smaller the politician, the bigger the ego. The more they lose, the more their ego balloons. They become defensive, and they don't want to hear anyone say, "Aap ye galat kar rahe hain." They want to, they love being surrounded by people saying you're so great. जगह जगह आपके चर्चे हैं. No, famously Indira Gandhi lost the post-emergency election because she thought she will win. I mean, she called for elections because she thought she will win.
Yeah.
And famously, Khushwant Singh asked her क्या हुआ, and Mrs. Gandhi said हमको feedback नहीं मिला. Famously, the intelligence bureau told her you're going to win.
Yeah.
Right. In the case of Nitish Kumar, this election, right? I think Nitish Kumar himself was surprised to see the wave of anger that came his way, and the people in the JDU who were managing his campaign in the back room.
Yeah.
And one of them told some journalists that there's nobody in his coterie who has the guts to tell him कि ये गलत हो रहा है, कि ये problem है. So this yes men syndrome. Now the question is, does Modi not have this problem?
Exactly. Like
Modi would have far more psycho friends around him than our chudbaiya netas.
Exactly.
Right? So, but the answer in the Modi system to this is surveys.
Yeah.
The BJP, I mean, they have the money to do it, but they do endless surveys to figure out the ground reality.
Yeah.
They mine social media like crazy to see what the critics are saying.
Yeah.
They of course unleash their troll armies on the critics, but there are people there who are reading and figuring out the critical narrative that's coming out about the BJP and Modi, and they begin to address it. Right? They take that criticism very seriously. The fact that they spend time, money, energy on the troll armies also tells you that they take criticism seriously. They don't rubbish and say all is well. Right? They say all is well, but they're internally they're very, very aware of what's going wrong here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and I need to fix this. Right? So that kind of self-awareness and sensitivity and having the sort of courage to seek criticism for what it is and try and address it rather than be in denial is something that I find is present in the BJP system, but is totally absent in much of the opposition, which usually just lives in denial.
But for a leader, it's not difficult to set up a team that does it. Like doing surveys is not a big task, and you don't need to do massive surveys all the time to get the right feedback. It's a very simple process to do surveys, have one dedicated team and get the right feedback, bypass everything.
It's not difficult, but you'll be surprised. After the 2019 Lok Sabha elections, I asked one leader in opposition party, I said, your campaign did not look like it was raising any issues that were important to the people. I said, did you even do a survey to figure out what the public mood is? And he said, nahi, ab karenge.
What?
I mean, you will be surprised how many politicians, opposition leaders, political parties not only have no clue about public opinion, they don't think it's important for them to figure out public opinion.
Do they even understand what surveys are meant to do?
It's not important for them.
So they don't have a scientific approach basically to campaigning. They don't have that is where structure comes from. They're not professional.
They don't think they need to campaign permanently.
They're not serious about their job. Say what you will, agree or disagree with BJP. Like I disagree with them all the time. But at their job, they're really good. They're good at having a message, whether you like it or not, whether a large section of people like it or not. They have a message. And they have a vision of how they want to make India great. They know how that pathway is. Like, even if it is religious, even if it is nationalist, it is their pathway, and that's what they're selling.
They're fantastic at their job, but having said that, they make a huge number of mistakes.
Of course they do.
Even the BJP makes a huge number of mistakes. Everybody does. We all do. Right? But the opposition is unable to exploit those mistakes to their end. Right? I mean, just the migrant labor crisis, for example. Historic blunder. And this was not a blunder like demonetization where you could spin it. You couldn't, there was no way you could spin it. I mean, that migrant labor crisis alone should have made Modi extremely unpopular.
Exactly.
All it needed was opposition leaders coming out and sort of making themselves present amongst the people, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this opposition reminds me of the Congress party as it existed before Mahatma Gandhi arrived full time and joined the Congress. And if you see Attenborough's film Gandhi,
Right.
There's this scene where Mahatma Gandhi just returned and he's addressing a crowd in Bombay of a Congress meeting, and Muhammad Ali Jinnah is next to him, and Gandhi says, we have to get out of this elite Bombay club and go to the masses, which is what Gandhi does. Gandhi's main political achievement was not non-violence. It was taking the Congress party and its message to the masses.
Exactly.
And he had no elections to win, right? In fact, he often ended in dismay because, right, freedom was not coming anytime soon. It was a lifelong project. But you know, the idea was that you have to be with the masses all the time. You know, think about them, what do they want, what do they need. You know, if you could disagree with the masses as he often did, right? But you have to be with them and among them.
Yeah. And he was in jail a lot of times, if that is what opposition leaders fear.
He loved going to jail. In fact, if you read him, it almost sounds like he would be provoking the British to put him in jail, because he realized every time he would go to jail, he'd become a bigger and bigger martyr.
Absolutely.
He would provoke a greater response, and that's the whole point of civil disobedience. Right. Yes, I mean, the biggest favor Amit Shah can do, Modi Shah can do to these entire opposition is to put them all in jail. All in jail. Sab seekh jayenge rajneeti.
Really? Yeah, I think after you've been like slapped on the face, only you learn how to fight back properly. So ek baar jab wo hoga to
it'll also, what it'll also do is it'll sift the grain from the chaff. So there will be those who will say, I can't use an Indian toilet in jail without air conditioning. So they'll compromise with BJP and they'll say, I give up, right? There will be those who will be hardened and they will say, I'll fight more, I'll fight bigger, right? I mean, and that's already been happening to non-politicians. Look at this amazing guy Kafil Khan in UP.
Right.
They keep putting him in jail for no rhyme or reason, right? And every time they do that, he looks bigger and better. And
he's become a celebrity out of nowhere.
So
same with this guy Umar Khalid. Like,
there's so many.
Nobody knew him. I still don't know him, but he's in the news all the time.
I mean, but maybe Kanhaiya Kumar has laid down his arms and compromised or whatever. But Hardik Patel, put up an agitation, had no fear. But these are people who come from humble roots and they have nothing to lose. But many of our young opposition leaders, they have too much privilege, too much. They have children and families and they have too much money. It's not worth it for them. I mean, the old opposition leaders of yore, they came from nowhere and I was joking with someone that these dynastic politicians, their parents and grandparents have made so much money that half the time these dynastic politicians are figuring out how to spend the money. So therefore they don't have time to think about how to do voter outreach and how to do permanent campaigning, because
they can spend the money in the campaign. That's very good expenditure with good returns.
They're not sure the returns. It's a foreign holiday is a short return.
So maybe they're not sure of themselves. I mean, if you're not sure of a return which will directly come after your effort, you're not sure of yourself.
Absolutely not sure of themselves.
What else does it come down to, right?
As Barack Obama has just said about Rahul Gandhi, he hasn't really mastered the subject, right? He's eager to impress. He digested the coursework, but he not mastered the subject. He does not have the aptitude or the passion.
I do feel like sympathetic towards him in a way that his dad was killed, his grandmother was killed, and he might have had a very protected upbringing. So I think that is where a lot of politicians, especially the ones who come from privilege, might struggle. That where to take the right advice from.
You are sort of poor, illiterate, widowed Dalit woman in Bundelkhand.
Right.
and your 2-year-old baby is dying because you cannot feed the baby, you don't have money, will
Right.
you sympathize if you are that woman, will you sympathize with Rahul Gandhi that he lost his grandmother,
No.
he lost his father, he's had a protected upbringing, right?
Yeah.
Or will you worry about saving your own life?
No,
and,
what I'm
and
saying
if you
is-
find a Modi saying Atmanirbhar Bharat, you might think, okay, this guy's doing something.
Yeah.
He has some vision.
Absolutely.
Maybe he'll do something that will
Yeah.
that'll save my child,
Yeah.
right? So
No, I'm
I
not
mean- I mean,
sympathizing as a voter. I'm just as an individual. I think the biggest weakness could be that you don't know who to take advice from because
no,
you've never been through the
I don't
process.
sympathize with Rahul Gandhi at all.
No, I'm not
I
saying
think,
you should.
I think the man has grown up with extreme privilege. Yes,
Yeah.
he's had grief in his early childhood, but it's not as if
Exactly.
none of us have seen
Right.
grief or hardships
Yeah.
in our lives. And the man has extreme privilege. A man who goes to Shimla even for 2 days in the middle of Bihar elections. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I have no sympathy for such a leader.
Exactly. So that is what I'm saying. So his life was like his life began in privilege, right? But then at some point you grow out of
His
it.
life began in privilege, and he knows his privilege is forever. I mean, the man couldn't save Amethi, but his party gifted him a free safe seat from Kerala, so he still
Right.
has his Lutyens bungalow
Yeah.
from where he can sit and post a picture, a quiet evening in the office. The man's privileges are not going anywhere, right? He thought he could have the SPG forever, and now that Modi's taken away the SPG, he still has a huge security cover. He makes the cocoon that he lives in. His Lutyens bungalow, his security, his wealth, his foreign holidays.
Yeah.
None of these change whether he wins or loses an election. Right? There are politicians who dread losing an election because they lose that Sarkari Bangla.
Right.
And that Sarkari Bangla is their prestige. Voters
Yeah.
respect you because you have the Sarkari Bangla.
Yeah.
Gandhi family does not see itself losing the Sarkari Bangla anytime soon. केरला से हार जाएंगे, कहीं और से सीट मिल जाएगी, कहीं राज्यसभा मिल जाएगी.
They'll soon run
Right.
out of seats.
Right?
The way they're going, they'll soon run out of seats to run from.
Well, they went from 40 something to 50 something seats in the Lok Sabha. So, एक आध सीट तो बची जाएगी.
So you're saying it comes down to, but in a scenario when there is,
जिसके पास जो नहीं होता है,
हाँ, that I get.
उसके लिए चाह होती है. जो
Exactly.
already है, like
उसके लिए क्या चाहे?
like when the Congress party was in power in center, when the Congress party has power lots of states, तब भी Rahul Gandhi was in the same bungalow.
Yeah.
अभी Congress party is collapsing, Rahul Gandhi is the same bungalow.
कुछ फर्क नहीं
So
पड़ा.
how does he see his life changing? It makes no difference to his life.
Maybe the threat of actually not winning enough seats to get the bungalow. Well, ऐसा तो एक टाइम आएगा ना जब if in the Hindi belt they're hardly winning 10 seats. In 2019 they hardly won 10 seats in the entire Hindi
Yeah.
belt. They won a lot of seats in Tamil Nadu because of the Stalin's collaboration, right?
Yeah.
And then some seats came from Punjab and Kerala. That's all they have to show for. So when that goes away in the next election, Stalin says, "I'm not."
Yeah, so
going with you."
if they lose the Lutyens bungalows, as Priyanka Gandhi indeed has as of now, when they lose their privileges, but they still have enough wealth, to
So
live
would
in
they-
a penthouse in Gurgaon. So
But why would?
their lives are not affected.
Then why would they want to be in politics?
Why do you come into politics when you have this revolutionary fire
Right.
inside you? You want
Exactly.
to change the world. Do they want to change the world? No.
I don't know.
The world is very good for them. Do they want? I mean, Modi was a pracharak in the RSS in ideological rage to change the world,
Yeah.
right? Mahatma Gandhi wanted to overthrow the British Empire, right?
So you're saying there are no challenges.
Jayaprakash Narayan, Mulayam Singh Yadav, Lalu Yadav, Vinoba Bhave. These are people who had a revolutionary fire to change the world. Indira Gandhi was fired up by the fact that the old guard, the syndicate of the party, was not letting her do things. She cut them aside like this. Rahul Gandhi is still complaining about the old guard. I mean, that fire in the belly, just I'll change the world.
You think that can come from anywhere, that fire in the belly? Is there a possibility?
Realistically speaking, it can come not from the existing leaders. It'll come from a new leadership. It'll come from one of these Omar Khalids or Kafil Khans or Devangana Kalitas. It'll come from somewhere we don't expect. It'll come from the grassroots. It'll come from come from some slum in Delhi.
But unless
which
they
is where
start their
Mayawati
own
came
party,
from.
yeah, unless they start their own party, all these young people you're mentioning.
Start their own party, take over a party, whatever. Like, but a new churning will need new leaders. These entitled young dynasts, they do not have that fire in the belly. They do not see politics as being about the masses. They see politics as being
hand baby. But I think in the given scenario, either you join the Congress if you want to be a national leader, right? Or you start your own thing. Like, I liked the way Kanhaiya Kumar was going because he was in CPI, a party already established, even though not doing so well. So he had that opportunity to take it forward. But of late, he's disappeared somewhere. I've never heard anything about him.
Yeah, God knows what he's up to. But and that's a big problem, to not know what he's up to. The big problem, because when you are in public life, you're in politics, you have to create a sense of consistency.
Right.
Ki I'm here doing this, I'm here doing that. You cannot just disappear and come back and disappear for days. That inconsistency, what it does is it doesn't let me trust you. I don't know if I put my faith in Kanhaiya Kumar today.
Right.
He'll disappear again tomorrow.
Yeah.
I know that no matter what, Modi will be there giving a speech, assuring me all is well. Right? That consistency.
Exactly.
That, I know that if I go to this particular shop and pick up this particular shirt, that shirt is, I know how it's going to be like. Right? That faith, Kanhaiya Kumar has sadly gone the way of most of the opposition, which
and he's not even that entitled to begin with.
Well, I think, a very young guy, got a lot of fame. But maybe he's up to something and he'll bounce back. Let's cut him some slack.
Sure.
I do think, for example, that Kanhaiya Kumar, unlike the entire existing mainstream opposition, is a great orator.
Yeah, he can speak well.
Yeah, but that's not enough for political success. But that's a huge one.
He should have contested the Bihar election as an MLA. Why not?
I don't know.
His party was.
Well, I've heard that the RJD wanted to keep him away because he was too leftist. He would have attracted the Tukre gang thing. So they did not want the election to go that way. And what I've also heard is that Kanhaiya Kumar is trying to moderate and mainstream himself. So and he distanced himself from Omar Khalid and so on. So
right. So he's in a rebranding exercise probably.
Yeah.
Okay. So that leaves us with only Arvind Kejriwal, who is the consistent guy. He's the only consistent face. At least he's there. He can take the next step, go big.
Arvind Kejriwal is also a disappointment. He knows structured campaigning, modern portal campaigning, etc. But he is, I think the big lesson is soon going to be 10 years of the Lokpal movement, is that when you don't have ideology, then he's groping in the dark. ये कल नहीं चल जाएगा, वो आज मोदी को गाली दे लेंगे, आज बिल्कुल मोदी भक्त बन जाएं, आज हिंदू बन जाएं, कल हम खाली गवर्नेंस मसीहा बन जाएं. So he just, he doesn't know what he's himself about. He just is a man in a hurry who just does gimmicks for attention, and he's won Delhi because there's no alternative and he gave free electricity. But I remain skeptical of his national expansion efforts. I'd be happy to prove wrong, but I think what we saw in Punjab showed what an immature politician he is. The biggest question was Kejriwal is, as he wants to expand across India,
right?
Can he allow the creation of newer faces in states? Right. I think there's a reason why there's no third party after BJP and Congress, which has been able to expand across India. Right, length and breadth of this country have only two parties, BJP and Congress. Everybody else is a one state, one man party, because that face is so important that they cannot allow the creation of another face in another state. That's where a kind of a routing becomes important. You have to distance yourself from petty power like chief ministership, like
Yeah.
Gandhi family or the RSS take a step back,
Right,
and
right.
and it's not a joke. I mean,
Yeah, of
people
course.
like Congress and BJP have been built with the sweat and hard work of so many leaders and workers over decades,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
So that leaves us with the only option of Congress either reviving itself or like being broken by somebody.
no, I think there's a third option. I'm very inspired by Mahatma Gandhi. This man comes in and just
Yeah. But he had a party
sparks a
to
revolution.
become a member of.
He took that party to the grassroots. I mean, that
Yeah.
party was the Bombay Lawyers Club.
Yeah.
So, Mahatma Gandhi, I think if you read about the life of Mahatma Gandhi, you'll be full of hope
Yeah.
about this country even now,
Mm-hmm.
because there is the possibility always of that one Messiah coming and saying, I'm a better Messiah than Modi.
Right.
Right? Not that Modi is bad, but
Yeah.
I'm better. I have the answers to your problems.
Also, Modi will become old, so people will look for alternatives. If not now, couple of years.
Yeah,
down the line.
but I'm saying there's enough economic distress, enough
True.
problems in this country that tomorrow morning,
Yeah.
if a leader comes up and manages to persuade the masses that I am the man you need,
Right.
I am the man who can create jobs for you, I am the man who can solve your problems, I am the man who can rid India of air pollution, right?
Right.
That's what Modi did in 2014.
Right. Right.
He managed to make the people trust him
Yeah.
that I have the answers to your
Yeah.
problem, right? I think it's frankly not very difficult. The difficult part is the scale, but in a country where we have 1,000 babas doing the same thing in
Right.
every district,
Exactly.
right?
It's not that difficult.
It's not very difficult,
But
but
then-
it just needs a vision where
Yeah.
the leader knows that the leader has to be in a conversation with the masses on a daily basis.
But one key difference in situations that Gandhi had and this hypothetical person could have is that Gandhi had a pan-India party, even though just in name, which was Congress, and there was no other party like the BJP, which was very ideologically, religiously everywhere. And
Gandhi
second was
made Congress a pan-India party.
no, I'm coming to that. Second was there was mobility within the party. He could contest and become the president of the party. Right now, nobody, even if this hypothetical inspiring person comes,
But
he will have to say hi to Rahul Gandhi every morning.
No, so what after Gandhi arrived, I mean, the point at which Gandhi arrived in the Congress party, the Congress party was going through a leadership transition. Old leaders
Right.
were dying, and he had a vacuum which he occupied,
Right.
much as Modi occupied the leadership vacuum in the BJP
Right.
at the right time.
Yeah.
And Mahatma Gandhi then was so powerful. He could decide who the party president is. He could decide who cannot become the party president. He was the party.
Right.
And yet he chose not to be permanent president the way Sonia Gandhi has been for 20 years or so.
Yeah.
Right? He chose to step back and say, I am not here for political office. He created conditions for others to thrive. He became
Right.
above and beyond any political office, right? And I think for a leader to capture the imagination of the masses, that is what it takes. It's not about the office. It's not about the election. You will win election after election. You can make other people win election.
Yeah.
It's blind faith.
Right.
And if a leader can do that, Rahul Gandhi वगैरह कौन है? Nobody will remember that.
Yeah. I do think eventually it might come down to how far you can rise. If somebody like that joins the Congress, I'm guessing, how far you can rise within the party. At some point, you need to break away.
This party problem, you're trying to say, how do we solve the party problem,
Yeah.
right? Now, this party problem is a good problem to solve, but
Yeah.
it's a secondary problem. First,
It's an operational
first
problem.
comes the face, then you have to worry about the body that will drive the campaign. But you first need the face. If the right face comes along, party. If I told you in 2012 that a year from now, Arvind Kejriwal will be Chief Minister of Delhi. Aam Party, the party had not been announced,
Right.
you would have laughed at me.
But that's Delhi.
You would have laughed at me.
Yeah.
Well, that's Delhi, but there's so many other examples. Regional parties have come up in India across the country.
They will face the same problem.
Kashiram, a Punjabi Dalit,
Yeah.
who was working in Pune, creates a political party which has a Dalit woman as a face. What are the Dalit woman's credentials? She was a school teacher in Delhi slum. Right?
But that Dalit woman cannot go national now. That's the whole problem.
But she did become chief minister of UP 4 times.
But then
the same can be replicated at the national stage. There's no reason why it can't be done. It'll take time. It cannot happen overnight.
I'm not saying it can't be done.
It cannot happen overnight.
Yeah. But there will be an operational challenge of whether you start something new, bring people together.
No, but I think Mayawati herself, while we are on the subject of Mayawati, had a golden opportunity to make the BSP a pan-India Dalit party. She lost that opportunity because she was more interested in being chief minister of UP. If she had thought like Kashiram,
absolutely,
taken a step back, made somebody else the chief minister of UP, and did the national expansion of the BSP.
Exactly.
In his own limited way, there is a man who is a member of parliament of one city. He's a one city, one religion party.
Right.
Okay. Asaduddin Owaisi. He's going national. What are you talking about?
Exactly.
Yeah, like it is so easy to go national. I will sound stupid here saying this. But it is easy to go national than to be state. Because state politics becomes too much about nitty-gritty, caste, whether you're the right caste or the wrong caste. I mean, half of the SP Yadav's problem is that he's a Yadav, right? Comes in the way of getting EBC votes and there's a General Raj Bagheri and so on. But if you're doing national positioning and if you're making a national pitch for yourself, it's actually much easier to do that.
I think even if going back to Kejriwal, he wants to take that step, he needs to take a step back.
Kejriwal had become a national figure in 2011 itself.
And he's already
9 years ago.
Yeah.
He wasted a national political capital by becoming Delhi chief minister.
Totally.
The day he became Delhi chief minister, he ruined his national chances.
Yeah. And he did that twice.
Yeah. And also, I mean, just look at the BJP itself, right? The BJP was floundering in states.
Yeah.
The BJP, as we know it today, was created 40 years ago. It's their 40th year.
Right.
And when they were created, I mean, they won a good number of seats in Rajasthan, I think, Bhairav Singh Shekhawat, but that was not so much because of the BJP. That was, Bhairav Singh Shekhawat's own
influence,
legacy, the Jan Sangh kind of era. But mostly, they would be winning 5-10 seats here and there in every state.
Yeah.
And how does the BJP then change that? How do they come to power? Do they first go national or do they first win a state? They first go national. There was something called the Ram Janambhoomi movement. Right? Which was not limited to UP.
Yeah.
Right? It was Somnath to Ayodhya. Right? It was trying to capture national imagination. And okay, even if national here means Hindi heartland.
Still, it's a
I
lot
don't mean to offend people in the south and elsewhere, but that's a large swathe, right? So you first put up a national, you first capture the national imagination and the states follow. States as center has not happened.
Yes.
Centers as state.
Yeah.
Top down has been happening. We see this in the expansion of the BJP after Modi. We see this with the Ram Janambhoomi movement. We see this with the Lokpal movement.
Right.
We see this with VP Singh, whom we forget, Bofors, right? The man comes out of nowhere, creates a new party, does alliances, becomes prime minister in the space of 2 years.
Exactly.
So what are you talking about, Mr. Anshuman?
Yeah. I don't know what I'm talking about, frankly. But this has been a lovely conversation, Shivam.
Thank you so much.
I don't know how we've just passed an hour.
We did? Oh,
yeah. Thanks so much
we
for
could
doing
go
this.
on.
Yeah, we could. But we're going to do this another time.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming.